has brought into law for local governments, correct?
Well, it's passed.
Yes.
And but they only proclaimed
yes.
specific sections.
And that was the
so
issue.
They cherry-picked this one section that dealt with the term of office, proclaimed that part, and then said, well, the law now reads that the term of office shall be 4 years, and that means the people in 2019 should be serving for 4 years.
Right.
And we said that makes absolutely no sense because it is prospective in nature, and in any event, the law doesn't allow you to be retrospective, to look at things retrospectively.
Right.
Another thing that we argued, which we also argued, and we've not yet get judgment in that claim, but we had also filed a claim where there was an unreasonable delay in calling an election in the electoral district of Davis South,
right.
where, as you know, our councillor had passed away.
Yes.
They had 2 elections in Tobago, and they still would not call the election in Davis South.
Right.
And we were arguing that even though local government is not enshrined in our constitution, there's a specific right that deals with freedom of political expression. Now, that is different from the rights as they are set out in all other constitutions. It was a specific right apart from, you have freedom of expression
yes.
in almost all Commonwealth constitutions. But back in the day, in the Marlborough House meetings and so on, from our research, that was a specific right that was asked for by the opposition, Rudranath Kapil and others, because they lived in fear of the suppression of political expression.
Yes.
And what we have been arguing is that the right to vote, whether it is in a local or a general election, is the ultimate form of political expression. How else do you have political expression?
Correct.
Except by casting your ballot.
Yes.
Now, because local government is not enshrined in the Constitution, which, by the way, is something that the UNC has been saying we would like to see happen, we did not succeed that it was a constitutional breach. But there was a violation of the rule of law because the government decided to place an interpretation on this proclaimed section and say that they will put off an election. And there's some excellent, what I would say, quotable quotes from the Privy Council about how important it is for persons to be able to not just vote in, but vote out people from office.
If I remember correctly, the Privy Council said it shouldn't have to be said, but let's say it anyway, essentially.
Correct.
Right? Just to remind you. Yeah.
Just to remind clearly the government, because they felt that giving councillors and aldermen 1 more year to serve was their call to make. Yeah. And the Privy Council was very clear that not the parliament, but more so not even the executive arm, which is the ruling party, should impose representation on the people. Yeah. People's representatives should be elected by nobody but the people.
Yes, correct. And I think another principle that I was very fond of in the judgment, because I think we also sort of raised an argument similar to it in the sedition matter, is that the Privy Council essentially said, look, if you're going to legislate away rights, the language in the legislation ought to be very clear.
Exactly.
And I think that they would have said that in relation to the right to vote as well, correct?
Yes, and it's disputed as to whether or not it's, because I think that was the point at which 2 law lords sort of deviated, that they didn't see this as being so unclear. But the majority, which is what matters, instead, that, look, the language really wasn't clear. And they said if you're dealing with something as fundamental as voting rights, you have to be explicitly clear. What is interesting, and we raised this at the High Court and the Court of Appeal and again before the Privy Council, is that the model for deferring an election and extending the life of a council existed under the Manning administration, where they were again touting local government reform and saying they're putting off the election because the reform was coming, and I don't think they ever really made any headway with it. But they brought a bill to Parliament, and you would see, if you look at the Municipal Corporations Act, that time-specific clauses towards the end there, the election due on X date is now postponed to so-and-so date. I'll tell you the difference between that and what this government tried to do. That explicit provision made it clear when the government brought the bill that to the people's representatives and the independent bench and everybody else and to the country, that what we are doing is extending the life of the council.
Parliamentary scrutiny.
What they did here was a complete backdoor, roundabout, sneaky sleight of hand way of achieving that and avoiding the scrutiny of Parliament, which is what you would have had when you brought a bill like what was brought under Mr. Manning's administration.
Yeah, and that to me defeats the entire democratic process, because the point of Parliament is to have your elected representatives. Again, we're talking about your elected representatives, but it's to have your elected representatives scrutinize on your behalf any legislation that is to be made part of law in Parliament.
Ask questions, debate it, raise the issue,
try to amend it,
make sure,
and perhaps,
propose amendments.
And perhaps if they had come and said, this is what we also wanted to do with it, maybe someone would have made a suggestion, well, look, the language is not clear, you need to fix it, right?
And, you know, and that's, again, we raised that argument as well, that no way, we went through annexed the entire Hansard of the debates to our claim to show that nowhere did the government indicate that once this law came into force, that it would take immediate effect and the councils would be extended. Yeah. In fact, one of our senators had raised the question of, well, why? What is the need to extend the life of the council? And they never answered.
Yeah.
And that is a habit of this government, that the point of a debate, even if we are not opposing something, we will raise questions, and they just don't answer.
Yeah.
It's disrespect for the Parliament, but it's also disrespect to the population, because we don't raise questions because just for our own knowledge. It's for the population to become aware.
Well, ultimately, you have politics, I suppose, and then you have the work of the... You all will raise issues and try to assist them at least in drafting good legislation. And if it doesn't happen, well, it's only the government to blame, I suppose.
And that is becoming their track record. I've been involved in 3 matters that I could recall off the top of my head that would have involved sloppy drafting, not analyzing provisions, even in subsidiary legislation, enough to ensure that it doesn't violate the Constitution. And all of these things really show that the government just not doing enough consultation, perhaps not listening to the professionals enough, probably not, well, I don't know.
It reminds me of the, I believe it's another case you may have been involved in, the Police Service Commission subsidiary legislation where they tried to...
Yes, that matter. They tried to change the order that would determine how the process to select the Commissioner of Police. That thing, I mean, you know, they inserted the Minister of National Security into the process to trigger it, which was held to be illegal and was struck out. That was one. The other one is where they amended the order to be able to appoint an acting commissioner.
Yes.
Which is also held to be illegal and in violation of the constitutional provisions.
So they seem to have.
And now they've come again with this one here. And you know, what I find amusing is that the argument that they're trying to run is that, look, there was no deliberate attempt by the government to put off the election, but there was a misinterpretation. That's like saying, I'm not being malicious, you know, I'm just stupid.
Yeah, well, that's like saying I can't read my own handwriting. And I mean, while in terms of penmanship, I could understand that, but you can't draft something and not know what you're drafting.
Well, they know what they're drafting, but they were saying that by the interpretation they placed on it, they are saying that this is an honest mistake, but that this is how they interpreted it. And they garnering support for themselves by saying, but you know, it's not us alone. It has 2 people in the Privy Council and 3 in the Court of Appeal here who agree with us. So it's not we alone that's stupid. That's what they're saying, you know. And I mean, that's ridiculous because it doesn't explain why you felt the need to cherry pick this one particular clause and proclaim it when you haven't proclaimed the rest of it. When they proclaimed this, there was a press conference held, and of course it was part of our evidence, so I've studied that in detail.
Yeah.
And the minister set out a whole timeline of all the other things that were going to happen and all the other things that were going to be proclaimed. How many other things, has he actually done?
Yeah.
None. So your intent, let's go into speak like in criminal law terms now.
Yeah.
Your intent could be inferred. Your intent, as what was the intent of cherry picking this one clause, could be inferred from the fact that you haven't really done anything else that you said you were going to do. Your intent here was to avoid facing the electorate. Full stop. And that's what it is. And that's my opinion. And no threat of contempt could stop me from saying it.
Well, correct. And I'm not afraid of contempt either, because I laughed when I heard it. But
yeah, of course. Well, at first I laughed, and then I realized how dangerous it is, and as a society, how concerned we have to be about our rights, because you have an attorney general, the second highest office holder in the cabinet of this country, essentially trying to encroach upon freedom of the press. That we are on a very, very slippery slope.
And freedom of expression.
Dangerous, to say the least.
And it's always been a principle of law that judgments and judges could suffer the scrutiny of ordinary men. I think that's a famous judgment of Ambad versus the Attorney General.
And the practice amongst lawyers, of course, as well, is that we will scrutinize and criticize judgments, but not necessarily the judge.
That's it.
Certain people in the cabinet didn't get the memo because they will come out and say that judges have friends who are criminals. Rather than actually speak to the merits of the judgment.
Correct.
But that is apparently not contemptuous. It is contemptuous to say that the government get their tail properly well cut in the Privy Council.
Well, that's the other part now, and I'm almost embarrassed to ask you about it. But I suppose just for completeness, let's talk about it. This press conference by the Attorney General was an interesting one. Dr. Munilal, in his usual political humor, put it nicely this morning about own goals and away goals and things. But what do you make of this comment what do you make of the general comments of the Attorney General, essentially counting judges and trying to go ahead.
It was desperate.
Yes.
It was a really pathetic attempt to save face. I felt a bit confused for him and sad, because I don't know who was managing this litigation from Trinidad. But as is the practice, there's an advance copy of Privy Council judgments that's sent out.
Copy,
and so those of us in the know, in the inner circle then, the attorneys involved in the matter, would have known what the judgment was going to be and what was going to be handed down on Thursday morning. So that bewildered sort of look on his face, not sure, and then grasping at straws the way that he did, was a bit surprising. I will say this, and I still get a lot of flack from my senatorial colleagues for it. When Mr. Almo was appointed Attorney General, I said, well, finally we'll have a senior counsel. I always had a lot of respect for Mr. Almo being a practitioner in the public law arena and so on, in matters that we would have been involved in against him and so on. So I am always very, very disappointed when I hear these things. Something that I was told, and I'm sure, Kyle, you would be told the same thing, is that you do not hang up your robes when you enter the political arena, because you are here as a professional, and you should not abandon the basic fundamental principles of your profession and essentially make a fool of yourself. So when I speak, I ground what I say in my knowledge and experience of the law. Yes, you want to pelt some lash and all of that, and you're in the political arena, you're down in the Gael, you have to get into all of that type of thing. But you don't step outside of the basic fundamental legal principles and your legal training and so on. You hold fast to that. That is your those are your moorings, right? And I feel very disturbed that someone of the caliber of Mr. Amor as a senior counsel would make those types of remarks in an attempt to perhaps convince the few supporters who might buy into that, when I think the rest of the country now considers him to be a bit of a laughing stock because of those ridiculous comments.
Well, I agree with you. As a lawyer, you have a wider duty to society and to the public. And regardless of what...
And your profession.
And regardless of whatever other hat you may wear, you ought not to mislead the public on law, on the effect of law, or at least on the effect of a judgment, and something so simple as to what is a majority and minority judgment.
And when you are a long-standing member of the inner bar, and now you are the titular head of the bar,
yes,
that duty is so much more important. And if I, as a junior member of the bar, consider that duty to be sacred, like yourself, I cannot see how Mr. Amor could stray so far from it.
Yeah. Let's get into the more tricky part of it. We've had this judgment, and of course there's been a lot of discussion. I saw that you were on today on the newspapers with Martin Daly, Senior Counsel, expressing some opinions as to what is now going to be the effect of the judgment. So you've had this judgment, and it's essentially rendered the extension of the councillors to be not in accordance with the law.
Correct.
What then? So there are two phases here. There's the phase between December 2nd, I believe it was,
yes,
up until the time of the judgment.
Thursday.
Right. And then judgment going forward. What are your opinions? Let's take the first one. What about acts, contracts, salaries, all things done by local government prior?
When we first filed this claim, we also asked for an injunction, and this was before the end of the term, just before, because they came very late in November with this proclamation. By the time we got into the court, it was November already, like maybe the second week of November and so on. We asked them to injunct the government and to prevent people from acting illegally in office beyond the 2nd of December. Right. That was resisted by the government, and we did not succeed at the first instance court. And then, of course, the 2nd of December came. We did not get a hearing in the Privy Council, in the Court of Appeal until the 20th of December. And all that time, you had 14 corporations with 100 and something councillors and aldermen illegally occupying office, being paid by the public from the public purse, and performing duties that they were not authorized to perform.
Of course, by no fault of their own. I say, of course, by no fault of their own.
By no fault of their own, they were given a directive from the ministry, which has authority over them, and they were there, and the court refused the injunction.
Correct. Yeah.
So that is what has been happening, and yes, I believe that unless the government takes some swift action to correct itself and its error, the corporations could see an avalanche of litigation. Because imagine the council could sit and decide to give a contract or to allocate money for some purchase or something, and they had no authority to do so. Yeah. Now, as was argued before the High Court when we went for the injunction, and as you would know as well, there's this thing called the doctrine of administrative necessity.
Yeah.
So, because everybody was operating under this misapprehension, and the actual office holders, as you said, through no fault of their own, would have been doing what they thought they were authorized to do.
Yeah.
You can preserve those decisions.
Yeah.
The Parliament can also pass what you call a validation piece of legislation to validate all the acts done. My view is that to allow them to continue beyond Thursday to do these things and to occupy office and to perform functions and to be paid is a total abuse. It is wrong. It is illegal. And, for the government to simply sit back, and God knows where they are sitting, because apart from Amor's disastrous press conference, I haven't seen or heard of from anybody else. I think they're all in hiding. And, the country's kind of like local government is on autopilot, just floating rudderlessly and, bouncing around here and there, and nobody knows what to do. And they are just depending on the fact that they will bring a validation act at some point in time to the Parliament, pass it with their majority, and of course not expecting any opposition from, a majority in the Senate or otherwise.
Yeah.
And, try to validate these things. But you can't run a country that way.
No.
You cannot simply allow people who are unelected to continue to hold office unelected, and you are not doing anything to correct yourself.
That doesn't
Thursday,
that doesn't seem to me in accordance with the rule of law, because if the law is now that you are no longer authorized, I could understand previously, but since if the law is now that you're no longer authorized to do the things that your office is supposed to allow you to do, then
correct.
Yeah, then you ought, then a government can't willfully
say go ahead and break the law.
Go ahead and break the law. Don't worry, we'll fix it.
And we go bring something down the road and fix it up.
Yeah, that is really sad.
It is atrocious.
Yeah.
It is disrespectful to the population. It is a complete breakdown of law and order and our democracy.
Yeah.
There's certainly nothing. There's no respect for the rule of law by our government that would know that they lost a matter in the Privy Council, that would know the consequences of that means that you've had people illegally occupying office and acting in office and performing functions for 5 going on 6 months.
Yeah.
And that you don't have an election date come Thursday. That press conference by Armour was supposed to say nothing more than this is the date for the election.
Yeah.
And local government, all people elected, debate office today. And that's how it should have been. And, again, they just feel that they can do what they want and nobody will stop them. And that's why they'll say, you all go ahead, do what you have to do, run your corporations, and, well, we get an advice, almost, paying for advice. People will advise him and he will advise Rowley. And all that advice, about a couple $1 million will be spent again.
Yeah.
And
they
will do what I could have told them to do a long time ago.
Well, I was just about to tell you, you just gave them advice that I'm sure they're going to pay a lot of money for. Right? They're going to pay a lot of money for. And it may very well be wrong. And I think I heard Dr. Munilal say it this morning as well. The AG could just pick up his phone, swallow his pride, call either yourself or Mr. Ram Logan and get some advice as to what to do. Right?
But before we commenced this action, we told them, listen, you all are wrong. This is a wrong interpretation. This cannot happen, etc. I would love to see somebody file a freedom of information request to find out how much they've spent on legal fees, High Court, Court of Appeal, and Privy Council to fight down this matter, just to lose, and to have our entire country in a total legal crisis.
Yeah.
Involving people holding office illegally and performing functions and so on, that they're not authorized to do. And now they'll have to, I know Armour says he win, but we're waiting on the cost order from the Privy Council, so I would like to see how much winning Armour will be awarded in cost.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Before you go, one of the other issues that has arisen recently is this, and I know you made a comment about it, the trial by jury, trial by what seems to be that we're moving
judge
towards
alone.
Trial by judge alone. Yeah, what are your comments on that, and what was that latest bill about? Because I really didn't follow it. I myself had a matter I was dealing with, but is that new bill that came through? I think it came in the Senate first.
It did.
Is it moving straight to trial by judge alone, or is it that it's some movement towards it?
Right. So in 2017, they introduced the option to elect trial by judge alone.
Right.
And they have now brought the most significant provision is that what they are saying now is that rather than you'll be tried by a judge and a jury unless you elect to be tried by a judge alone, they are flipping the position to you'll be tried by a judge alone unless you request a trial by a judge and a jury and the judge believes it to be in the interest of justice. And then there are some things that the judge must consider that you have advice and whatever. But in the interest of justice, as you know, is very broad and could be interpreted in a number of ways. So the big pushback from the opposition and even the independent bench, because of course there are some criminal practitioners on the independent bench, and they felt very strongly that is basically taking away that provision to be tried by a jury of your peers and imposing this trial by judge alone.
Yeah.
And, we also had a lot of concerns about whether or not, a judge who lives a very cloistered and secluded life would understand and be able to relate to the experiences of ordinary people who find themselves for the court, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Some other provisions that I found to be of concern were the reduction in numbers if you were to have a jury trial.
Yeah.
Again, you are narrowing the pool of experience that a jury will bring to a trial.
Yeah.
And I didn't agree with that either. So the bill has now given the very strong views coming out from the Senate, coming out from the Law Association, the Criminal Bar Association, etc. It's been sent to a special select committee. which will sit and meet with stakeholders and get their inputs and feedback and so on. At the end of the day, the government is saying that they are much more efficient and faster, and they will help clear the backlog of criminal cases before the court. Right now, as you know, it's a very huge backlog of cases.
Yeah.
I don't believe that we should sacrifice
justice on the altar of
quality
expediency
and a safe trial for the sake of expediency. Whilst I agree we need to clear the backlog, I'm not sure that this is the route we want to take. I'm also not sure how valuable removing the jury will be in terms of expediting a trial, and that's certainly the area that I will want to interrogate as part of that committee, because to me, at the end of the day, regardless of whether a jury is there or not, you have to call all of your witnesses, you have to allow cross-examination, and I don't know that the jury is contributing that much to the length and delay in a trial. So we will see how it goes from there.
Okay, all right. So thanks a lot, Senator, for joining us on a Sunday. I know that you're very busy both in politics and in the law. And hope to have you on for another topic. Hope to have you on for another PC win.
I hope so too.
All right,
thank you again for the opportunity, and you have a good evening.
Same to you. Thanks. All right, there you had it. Forensic breakdown of the judgment, the legal issues, and the issues arising out of the judgment. And some laughs about the Attorney General's claim of victory, which is really laughable. I wouldn't use strong language like pathetic, but I would say laughable. So Josh, let's take a quick break and we come back.
I am Ram Naresh Dwarika, inviting you to the program Addiction and Recovery, where we discuss issues relating to alcoholism and drug addiction. Be you an active user or in recovery, tune in every Thursday at 9 a.m. This is an interactive program, and you can call 663-1027 or 663-2335, where we can interact. Join me, Ram Naresh Dwarika, for the program Addiction and Recovery every Thursday at 9 a.m.
Join me, Harold Nabry, every Saturday afternoon from 4 for the program Suhana Safar right here on your favorite station, TV Jagriti. Suhana Safar, a program that goes behind the scenes, relives the pleasant memories and enjoy the modern music. I will explore the various aspects of the Indian film industry and celebrate with the players of this vast industry. You will hear some ghazals, bhajans, semi-classical music, and we'll also look at the history and development of the Indian music world. That's Suhana Safar every Saturday from 4 p.m. right here on your favorite station, TV Jagriti.
Right, so there you had it, as I said, forensic analysis of the judgment, the legal issues coming out of it, and hopefully the government will do, according to what Ms. Lutchmedial has said, what I think the United National Congress is telling them, and the Express editorial, so it's not a political thing. Instead of all of these validating acts and, machinations and legislative drafting that you may very well get wrong again, why not just call the election? Call an election, save everybody the time, the money, face the electorate like a government that you are. You want to meet people on pavement according to your slogans. Meet people on pavement. Well, meet them in the polling booth. Meet them in the polling station. That's where you're supposed to meet the people as a government, not anywhere else. Meet them in the polling station and let them decide your fate. Let them decide your fate. That's a democracy. You lose, you'll come back again. You win, well, so be it. You have all the force and authority of the population. But the point is, in a democratic society, you don't put off elections. And you only put it off for very, very good reason. A state of emergency. In fact, the court found that you shouldn't even leave the polling booth open for more than it should be. You didn't have power for that. So strict is the law with election. So come on, government, Attorney General, turn on your TV, you could record this and send it to the Attorney General, just call the election. Free advice, no charge, no $1 million bill, just call the election, and all of these issues could be resolved easily. And of course, bring a validating act, just in case. I may have a slightly different view in terms of what will happen to the councillors between December 2nd and the date of the judgment. I think that because they are largely innocent, they acted under lawful authority, and there are some provisions in the Local Government Act that may protect them. I feel that they are not liable, but just in case, I would follow the advice of the goodly senator and many others, pass a validating act to validate all acts just in case, and call the election now. Call it now, and whenever you want to transition to your new system, you can have another election if that needs be. But what you don't do is allow people or allow representatives to be there without the authority, the democratic authority of the population. I wanted to give a little shout out to a contributor of our program, someone who I have had the pleasure of leading me in the Privy Council in matters and advising me regularly, and he often contributes to the show, Mr. Anand Biharilal, King's Counsel. I think it's something that I saw in the newspaper on the way here. He has actually been appointed a recorder, which is essentially a judge of the court in England. Well, I say judge. He's a judicial officer, and a Trini-born King's Counsel, born in Trinidad. His father was a lawyer. He grew up in Trinidad. He moved to England. He studied. He became a barrister. Then he became a King's Counsel. So he practices law in England, and he has actually essentially been promoted to a judicial officer, which is a recorder in the UK. And so I want to say from Section 1, both Stefan and myself, congratulations, Anand. We call him Anand, but others call him King's Counsel, or Senior Counsel sometimes, or Senior. We call him Anand here on the show. Of course, when we're in court, it's different. So Anand, congratulations, and we look forward to having you give us some more good contributions and legal contributions, both to Trinidad and Tobago and to the Commonwealth now, because you would essentially be a judge in, or a recorder in England, which is like a judicial officer. So you can come back to me, yeah. All right, so I think what we'll do, we'll take a 5-minute break, or a minute break. We'll open the lines. Let's open the lines now, Josh. You have calls? Oh, let's have a call. Hello, good day.
Good afternoon, Mr. Tacklalsingh.
Good afternoon.
Princess Tong here.
Princess Tong, how are you going?
Well, I ain't going so good now, but we are in a frightening situation here, petrifying, dangerous waters.
Yeah.
And we, as the citizens here now, we are depending on people like you and the goodly Senator Lutchmedial and so on to help us to navigate the way forward, because our democracy seems to be eroded by this government day by day. I mean, you did a forensic analysis of the judgment. What about a forensic analysis on the political implications of what is happening with these judgments in the Privy Council? I mean, you have a situation here now that the Privy Council, in terms of what is the position with the Caribbean Court of Justice, I would like to say publicly, I at this time will not support any Caribbean Court of Justice.
Yeah.
We have had, as citizens of this country, to go too often for what could be considered simple matters to the Privy Council to adjudicate on matters that are simple and straightforward here. And if that is the situation, then I am very, very skeptical and scared about having any Caribbean Court of Justice at this time. It seems to me that our judicial system in this country have been seriously politicized, and one must question their impartiality, their operations and so on. What is happening, Mr. Tacklalsingh? This is something I think we have to bring to the fore, and and
discuss,
engage the population.
Yeah.
So it's
All right.
not just about denying people the right to vote.
Okay, thanks a lot, Princess Tong. Well, I want to say that I understand the criticisms in terms of the Judiciary and the Privy Council. I myself am an advocate of the Privy Council. Having said that, there are many strong, good and fair judicial officers in our local judiciary. Many of them are upheld in the Privy Council. Many of them have had their judgments overturned in the Court of Appeal and then reinstituted in the Privy Council. So I have confidence in our local judiciary, but I have more confidence in the judicial system, a larger extent, because of the final Court of Appeal being the Privy Council at this time. That's what I'll have to say in that. Yep, have another call.
Attorney Kiel Tacklalsingh.
Hi, good afternoon.
And I want to make a comment.
Sure.
Anand Biharilal, King's Counsel. Does he have platinum or zinc? Because a lot of us think has gone to Cotton, so that is all I have to say.
It's silk,
but
silk.
More importantly, what I want to say.
Yeah.
Some
Hello? You there? Hello? I think we lost your caller. You could call back 663-2335. 663-2335. Go ahead. We have another caller. Sorry about that last caller. We'll call back. Feel free to call back. Hello?
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
And yes, Mr. Tacklalsingh, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening. Go ahead. Let me hear your contribution.
Calling from Lapai.
Go ahead, Lapai.
So much are very important questions that we're passing through the House of Representatives. And it's concerned the general public. It's a simple thing like flood. When we have flood, we do not know where to turn to. And when you see these matters be taken up by your MPs, taken up in the Parliament, it does not consider arguing always enlightening the public.
Yeah.
What is my the young electorate on the outside here? What could I do that this thing must stop? Because it's too much nonsense taking place in the Parliament and it's being shut down by the Speaker of the House.
Thanks
Could
a
you
lot.
enlighten? Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Lapai. Well, I mean, put it like this. Unfortunately, we have a political system where the majority takes all of the power, all of the cards. I believe many people have called for some form of constitutional reform. I think you have to essentially let your voting fingers speak eventually. And, if there are other issues in terms of flooding that directly affects your house, there are some legal matters. You could see a lawyer and deal with that. Yeah, go ahead. Hi, good day.
I got cut off.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Second point.
All right. One of the issues is the WhatsApp messaging between these appeal court judges. They are alleged between the appeal court judges and the independent senator in Parliament. That issue has not been addressed by the then president and the Chief Justice. And that is still festering, because when we have important cases like this one that just happened with the Privy Council, you want to know if there's a nexus between the council and more particularly between the AG and those judges too. I'm saying it plain and thing. I want to know if he has an inside lane because he has been pontificating for them.
All right.
I'm not saying they have made a bad decision, but the Privy Council has set aside their judgment.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, caller. Yeah, I mean, that is a matter that would concern you. You essentially don't want private communication between the court, between judges and people who may be before the courts in that type of way. I think the senator was really wrong to mention that and to expose that. Even if there was a message, it ought not to have come out in public. Judges are ordinary people. They may very well message persons that they know. But I really think that was wrong of the senator for bringing that out, right? Any more calls? All right, well, we will wrap it up there. It is 1 minute to 6. Thanks for joining us. We will be back next week, Sunday, to discuss more legal issues and to discuss the issues in your sovereign democratic state. See you next week.